Hey, I'm Duke on Twitch. If you want to support the channel and greensunzenith.com, you can find my Patreon, merch store, and singles store where you can buy singles through TCG Player or Card Hoarder in the video description. If you want to get in contact, you can also find all that info in the description below for things like donation deck lists or just wanting to reach out. Alright, let's get right into it. Hey, welcome back to Duke on Twitch. Back today with a donation deck list, Abzan Maverick from Carador. This list is pretty sweet. I do have some opening notes, so let's go through those first and then kind of make our way through this list. So Carador has got a couple of 5-0s with this list, both before and after Lord of the Rings. The biggest thing motivating their deck construction was to lower the curve and to be as efficient as possible. None of the card advantage engines in this deck require any money paid into it post the initial investment, which is really nice. So when you think of cards like Stoneforge Mystic or Fiend Artisan, but here we have cards like Dark Confidant, which of course once on the board start hopefully producing some sort of card advantage. In saying that, that is where the spice is. There are 2 Dark Confidants here and also 2 copies of Grist. Grist was a card that overperformed for Carador in the sideboard, and so that has moved it to the main deck, which I think is a fine move. And it allows them to throw away the first as removal and then have the second as a way to grind, which is really cool. It is also just something that a lot of players don't really think about. Maybe outside of Elves, I've sometimes seen 2, but you typically only see 1 Grist in these sort of lists because you can just find it with Green Suns. There's no real need for a second copy from a sort of a tutor ability perspective, but of course it's just so good that having 2 makes a lot of sense. Bob as well obviously isn't that great in an Orcish Bowmaster metagame, which we are playing ourselves, but if your opponent has already played the Orcish Bowmaster and then you play a Dark Confidant, you're not drawing the cards, so you do in that way have an advantage over playing Sylvan Library in that slot. So Bob is kind of an upgrade against Sylvan Library in that case. It's also quite nice that Dark Confidant is disruption and pressure. Disruption in a slightly different way in that the card advantage it provides does snowball, especially against other fair decks. It's not disruption in the way that Thalia taxes spells or endurance negates an opponent's graveyard as a resource, but you could still say there's an element of disruption there, or at least double the pressure in that it's not only providing card advantage, but it's also attacking. The other thing to say here is that if your opponent's also, preemptively played Orcish Bowmasters thinking of some sort of cantrip or, some sort of card, Dark Confidant does do some work first, which is really nice. This list does have a pretty high density of 2-drops that are kind of must answers, which is also really nice because you don't have to rely on the mana dorks untapping in an Orcish Bowmaster metagame to effectively cast your spells. So even if you play something like a Turn 1 Noble Hierarch on the draw, your opponent answers it with an Orcish Bowmaster, you then have a really nice way to build out your board with 2-drops in Thalia, Dark Confidant, Orcish Bowmasters, Green Suns for another mana dork if you want, Once Upon a Time, a lot of nice things. The deck is pretty heavy in this build on black, so there was some thought for playing a Ignobled Hierarch, but Carador also said that against a lot of the decks like Blue-Red Delver and Mana Denial matchups, you do want to have access to that extra white source of Noble Hierarch, and it's really nice to have mana dorks that do tap for white for Source of Plowshares. So what we've actually done here is I have a copy of this Noble Hierarch, and then these 2 are both the Judge. So what we're doing here is still playing with the Nobles, but when we draw into this one, we know that, hey, this could have been the Ignobled Hierarch, and then we can kind of assess each situation on, what would have been better. So I think it's a really cool way to try out new cards or try out sort of seeing where cards fit in different slots. I also have the Endurances. Kind of the 3rd Endurance, in my opinion, is probably the 61st card, if not the Grist, but I do really like the 2nd Grist. So I'm going to say that the 3rd Endurance is that 61st. So again, have it in a different artwork to the 2 that I would say are next to stock at this point in Maverick. That's pretty much it. This is obviously an Abzan build. We do have a large number of X1s, but at the same time, they're also very powerful X1s. Mother of Runes can be answered by Orcish Bowmasters, but if you get to untap with it, it can be a little bit harder to do that. We do have Snuff Out in the sideboard as well, which Carador has said has been really nice against decks like Initiative and Stompy. But yeah, it's going to be nice to see when maybe Path to Exile will do better. Either we're going to have spots where there's something like a Opposition Agent or Fiend Artisan or a Traxxer or Orcish Bowmasters in play, or Snuff Out is just turned off. And so even in that slot, it's going to be really nice to see, you know, when could that have been a Path to Exile and when would that have actually been more efficient? Vivien Monsters Advocate. I would say most Planeswalkers are fine to play around with, and Vivien's just really nice because it does provide some card advantage with its static ability, and then obviously just being able to create some 3/3 beasts that hopefully your opponent has to deal with is really nice. And then also the ability to cast additional creatures each turn with the one that you just cast is pretty cool. So pretty happy to see that. I really like the Surgicals and Deafening Silences just to make sure we're not losing on turn 0 or 1 against combo. Fairy Macabre is also really nice. I do like Fairy in these Once Upon a Time lists because it allows you to dig for something that isn't just Endurance, which can be a little bit awkward because it means you have to have another green card in your opening hand as well. Gaddock Teeg, I think, is in a pretty fine position. It's a really nice way to keep the One Ring from coming into play, and against those sort of decks with Kungu the Great Creator, it just keeps a lot of win cons off the table. It's also quite good against some of the combo decks that are trying to go under these One Ring and Orcish Bowmaster decks. So I think having another 2-drop in Green Suns is great. A lot of players might see this deck and say, hey, why are you playing Gaddock Teeg when you play Green Sun Zenith? Isn't Gaddock Teeg and Green Suns kind of a no-bo? And yes, it is. But typically, in the matchups where you're bringing in Gaddock Teeg, you're going to be shutting down a lot more of your opponent's cards than your own Green Suns. So usually you're pretty happy to do that. And sometimes you don't even draw the additional copies of Green Suns. So it doesn't always happen where that's kind of going on, which is great. If you really want to, you can Karakas your Gaddock Teeg back to your hand, cast your Green Suns, and then recast the Gaddock Teeg, but typically it doesn't come up. Containment Priest I think is great as well. We've seen a lot of natural order decks, Reanimator online, even decks like Cephalid Breakfast, I don't mind. Containment Priest in, also turning off Vile in that matchup is pretty cool. Plague Engineer, just a really solid card, let's be honest. There have been times where I've wanted to play around with Zealous Persecution. Although it doesn't provide the body, it does come in a turn earlier, and it also allows you to keep a lot of different creatures off the board against the natural order decks, whether that's Wywood Symbiote, Dryad Arbor, Birds of Paradise, Noble Hierarch. There are a lot of X1 creatures in decks like Bant Natural Order, 4-color Natural Order, Cradle Control, and not all of them are the same type of creature. So I could definitely see Zealous Persecution coming in here. Snuff Out we talked about. Force of Vigor, again, I don't think that any Maverick sideboard can do without 2 Force of Vigor. It's just such a phenomenal card in the matchups where you want it. It buys a lot of time against the decks with explosive starts like 8 cast or lands, and it just allows you to stay in the game. It just allows you to stay in the game. That's kind of magic in 2023 for Maverick, I feel, is that you have a lot of great creatures, but you need to buy the time to be able to cast those creatures. And Force of Vigor is just one of those cards that allows you to not lose the game before you start casting your creatures. Choke, who doesn't love a choke, honestly? 2 copies, that's fine. You could say that some mana bases are getting around this with cards like Abundant Growth. You have Delighted Halfling now, which can create blue for things like Teferi. I still think Choke is just a fantastic card. And then Vivien. There we are. To the mana base, pretty sweet, honestly. I'm a big fan of 23 lands and 3 Once Upon a Time. I think that's fantastic. Here we have, obviously, 4 Mana Dorks as well. Birds is good. It taps for all colors, which is nice. Fun fact, with 1 Birds and Scrib Ranger and a Forest, you can return a Chain Lightning, which can come up. We do have the ability to also just give it protection from blue against things like Murktide Regent, potentially Delver or DRC if you really need to. So having the flyer, I think, in a Mother of Runes build is quite nice. but sometimes having the Exalted is better. Exalted is really nice when you go turn 1 Exalted Mana Dork, turn 2 Threat, and they go Teferi, bounce your threat. You can now attack the Teferi with your creature. Obviously, with Birds of Paradise, you can't unless you have another Exalted creature. So that's a little bit of a downside of birds over another Exalted creature. Obviously, things like Initiative, the Crown. There's a lot of things you can take with an Exalted creature. So although bird seems like it's a great fit, it's a mana dork that taps for every single color. Not being able to attack by itself is pretty key in some situations, and it does come up. So I'll leave you with that. And then honestly, a pretty nice, stable mana base. The 5 dual lands in 1 scrubland, 2 Savannah, 2 Bayou. I would say that's pretty stock for someone who wants to really have a nice mana base to work off. Against the decks where you want the black, you're probably up against Wasteland. So it's great to have, you know, the 3 copies of black here. If you really wanted to, you could also have the additional Nurturing Peat land. If you did stay with 3 nobles for your white sources, having the extra black source isn't a bad thing. We also have Bojuka Bog. And Bojuka Bog's another card that I will keep an eye on this league, because when you think of, you know what, pause this video after I say, think of 3 graveyard decks in Legacy right now. You got them? All right. Is a turn 4 instant speed Bojuka Bog good enough? Is a sorcery speed Bojuka Bog good enough? Probably not. Probably not. When you think of Reanimator, you think of Cephalid Breakfast. Potentially, if you have the early interaction, Bog Off Night is good, but obviously not having something like Elvish Reclaimer or Crop Rotation, Bog isn't going to be as effective as it is in other lists, but it does make Night just that little bit more flexible. And sometimes it is just the case of, you know, getting an Uro out of the bin, getting a Loam out of the bin, getting a Punishing Fire out of the bin. So I definitely don't mind it. It's nice to try out and see how it performs. I've always been a fan of only having it in the lists where I do have access to it at instant speed in things like Crop Rotation. But here we are. We're open to it. We're going to see how it goes. And you know what? Hopefully it does really well, because I'd love that. That's pretty much the list. Really keen to test it out in this league going forward. One other thing that I think a lot of players should do is warm up, because if you're a runner, you're going to stretch. If you're a sportsman, maybe play tennis, you're going to have a hit before you get into the game. So I think one thing to do with Maverick, and really any decks, but Maverick especially because you play with the hand you keep, is actually go to a deck site like Moxfield, load your deck up, and then scroll down to this section, which actually allows you to deal some hands, and then just do some sort of mental warm-ups in, okay, let's think of Delver, let's think of combo, let's think of control, let's think of mid-range. Would I keep this hand against Delver? Yeah, the mana's great. We have removal, we have Thalia for interaction, we have Grist to kind of get there. Would I keep this against combo? Probably. We have Thalia, we have Once Upon a Time potentially to find an Endurance to pitch to the Grist if it's Reanimator. If it's a slow Reanimator start, we have Bojuka Bog, we have removal and Swords to Plowshares. You know, it's actually pretty good against both those decks. All right, what about control? Well, again, pretty good. The Swords in the Bog, not as good, but we have potentially once into a Mana Dork, into Thalia, or a turn 2 Grist. We have removal for an early threat, something potentially like an Uro or a Mentor if it's an old school build. So I think this hand is actually pretty good. Would I keep this against something like Death and Taxes or Maverick if I knew it was going to be those decks? A little less inclined, but honestly, not that bad. Thalia is really the only poor card here, and as a 6, without the Thalia, it's a pretty strong hand. Has mana, has removal, has the ability to grind. So this is actually a pretty good start, because this hand is, even in the blind as well, it kind of ticks all the boxes. It has something for the fair decks, something for the unfair decks. It has all the mana in the world for us to cast our spells, and it has something to grind with in Grist. So pretty sweet hand. We go to another one. Pretty similar. I would be tempted to keep this on the draw, but probably not on the play, because we would have to go probably Bog tapped into Windswept to make sure we get down Thalia turn 2. But even then, that doesn't allow us to Swords to Plowshares turn 1, and we do have to draw land to be able to go Endurance into Questing Beast. So I could definitely see this being a mulligan because the mana just doesn't line up too well, and double Thalia can be really awkward in the decks with Karakas. If we do this again. Okay. Now this is a really interesting one because on the play, for me, it's tough because we do have Orcish Bowmaster, so we do have a turn 2 play, but we don't have any green mana, and I am a huge fan of keeping hands where you can cast your spells, which sounds really simple, but I could see players going, oh, but it's one fetch off the top when we get there, or, you know, if we're on the draw, we also have something like Once Upon a Time to dig for that fetch land and get the green source. But there have been too many games that I've lost by not assessing hands like this better and just thinking, surely you draw the green source. You don't always draw it. So I think I would actually mull this. So if we take this deal as the mulligan, let's have a quick look. I'd be happy to keep this. We have 2 mana, we have removal, we have Thalia for the unfair decks, Bowmaster for the blue decks and early creatures, and then Knight to get us there. I would probably drop the Oof in this hand because we have Thalia as kind of a taxing effect. Oof we can also find off Green Sun Zenith if it's really needed. So I think I'd be happy to keep this 6 and bottom the Oof, which leaves us with a hand that can pretty much answer anything thrown our way. We'll do one more. This is a tricky one. It is a... Depends again, play or draw. But on the play, the once has to find a green source. Hopefully a Savannah. But you obviously have no lands. But you do have 2 Noble Hierarchs. So let me know in chat. Let me know in chat if you would keep this and why. And if you thought of, say, Delver, Combo, Control, Midrange, and in the blind, are there any that stand out that you would not keep this against? Or are there any that stand out that you would keep this against? Maybe you're inclined to keep this against Control, because 1 land into Thalia off Noble Hierarch, or against Combo, maybe that's good enough. Maybe you don't want that against Midrange. Maybe against Control you want to make your land drops, and this hand doesn't do that. So let me know. I'd love to know. All right, let's get into this. If you aren't subscribed yet, definitely consider subscribing. A big thank you as well to Card Hoarder, who allow me to play with the decks that I want and sponsor the channel. All right, let's battle. Hey team, welcome back to Jigs on Twitch for round 1. We have a pretty great hand. We have early mana acceleration. We have Once Upon a Time to go and find either another land or another creature. Turn 2 Grist, turn 2 Knight, turn 2 Scrib Ranger potentially. Pretty happy to keep this. All right, we're going to be up against Delver, which this hand is quite nice against, especially with the once. I wouldn't mind another land and we find it. So let's go for... The question here is, do I want to fetch first? I honestly don't mind just going for a forest off the Verdant, which means I kind of have to have either Daze or Bolt for the Noble Hierarch, or potentially Outland Liberator. We then have the Bayou and Plains for the Grist. We'll start with the once. Okay. I really like the Wasteland here because it gives us 2 lands to put into the bin. I also don't mind Wasteland here. It's always tough with Delver on the draw, but there's so many hands kept by Delver where it's like 1 land, ponder Delver, and they start off on the creature. But I think in this position, because they have the Delver already in play, I'm pretty happy just to go for mana acceleration, get our plan online first, and then go from there. They also 6'd, which is a little bit of a giveaway that they don't have Daze or Force. And now they have Bolt. So that's going to be fine. They had the second land. There's the Bolt. And here's the attack. All right. Thalia's a pretty great draw. They didn't have Daze before, and we know they drew the Lightning Bolt, so happy to go with Thalia here. All right. pretty great for us. That means it's going to be a 2-mana bolt, or potentially a Ponder or Brainstorm to try to dig into some sort of removal spell for the Thalia. Do they have another land? Wow, they don't. That's pretty huge. So now we get to get him for 2. Wasteland here is pretty great, because we still get to play the Scrib Ranger. They also miss their land drop. There's a world where they could have Bolt here. Okay, interesting. They didn't play around Caracas, but here I think I'm pretty happy just to play the Scrib Ranger so it can't be forced or dazed with Thalia in play. But it will just keep this Insectile Aberration off the table for now. Another Delver is going to be fine. Bobble. Probably using that immediately to try to draw into a land, but they can, of course, do that in our turn. They're still going to attack. Maybe they didn't read Scrib Ranger. Having Pro Blue is obviously fantastic here, just to really buy some time. Also interesting to see that they didn't bobble in their turn to draw before we go to our turn here, because obviously pretty tight if they don't have a Daze or Force. Honestly here, I think it's going to be Bayou into Night. But getting Grist online is also pretty interesting. If I go Bayou into Night, the following turn I can potentially Green Suns for Endurance, which is nice. So I think I'm actually happy to keep the Grist because Murktide's a little bit tough. If they do find removal for the Scrib Ranger. They can also do something cool here. So they can... Actually, no, they can't because they targeted us. But if they knew the top card and it wasn't going to flip the Delver, then they could potentially... It's a pretty good draw. They could potentially draw first to flip the Delver and then hopefully flip back the next turn. Okay. Let's have a quick look at the deck. I believe here we just want to try to go for a Endurance. So let's play the fetch land. Fetch for a Scrub land. Which turns on all our colors. And hopefully they don't have Force. Thankfully no Murktide coming either. And now we have a pretty nice board. Bolt does do it. I might even Brainstorm first off the Underground Sea. Okay, that's going to be fine. Just double checking. Yeah, that's all good. I probably... So I could cycle this if I really wanted to. But there's no real point here. I guess I could get Dried Arbor. I think I might do that. Gives me a creature to sack to the Grist right now. That's pretty interesting. So the Endurance answers the Delver. The Knight answers the Orc. The Dryad answers the Bowmaster. We would take 1. I think in this case, it's a little bit awkward with the canopy. I could also try to go for a Cradle, which would give us the Grist as well. There's no real point not going to 2. I don't want to use the canopy, of course, because of the Bowmasters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then Cradle will give us 7 mana, which allows us to play both of these around days, which is pretty big. I think we start with that. Sorry. Start with Grist. I probably want to sack this for Cradle first, just in case we flip it off the top. A Bowmaster went to the bin. All right. Ooh, Snuff Out. Yep, that does it. All right. On the play, I like the Plague Engineer. I like the Snuff Out. I don't mind both chokes. We don't need the Collect Oof, the Outland Liberator. The Bobs are probably a little bit too risky against, obviously, a bulk Delver deck. I think that's where I'm at. Mums are great. Everything else is pretty fine. And having these is obviously nice. So happy just to make that slight adjustment. One of those matches where if you don't draw Swords to Plowshares and you don't have a control over the board state, then creature decks will just go around you. A little bit awkward here with mana, and I think that's a good reason to mulligan. We do have removal, but we have to go for a Bayou if we want this online, which means the bird is our only source of white. The Dried Arbor's pretty much got Summoning Sickness, so happy to mulligan this. Well, this relies heavily on the Once Upon a Time, but I don't really want to go to 5. I think we can keep this and probably bottom. I think I'd rather have the Bowmasters than the Plague Engineer. Bayou's perfect. A little bit tough here if they have removal, but we do have something like okay, that's pretty great for us. Reanimate, interesting. Okay. Play the Cradle. I'm just gonna play this now. And then we get to hold up the Once Upon a Time. It's just pretty nice. Delver's going to be fine. I think here, let's have a good look. So we untap with 2 mana. I think just getting the Savannah is fine. Keeps all our mana going. And also means we can play this Bowmaster as well. Around days, which is pretty huge. And Bowmaster here just really showing its power. Pretty crippling against any sort of cantrip. Even the Mistress Bauble has just stuck there. Can't be snuffed out either, which is very huge. Okay. So they can have their own Orc. Which isn't too bad because we have swords on the Orc. Bolt. Okay. That's fine. I don't want to overcommit into X1s, but I don't mind just playing Mum and then holding up Sword around days. Potentially keeping the Green Suns for a Endurance down the line. That's pretty good. Happy to attack with just the Orc army for 3. Get Thalia down. This game's been a really nice insight into the lower curve and how nice it is just to be able to potentially double spell as early as turn 3 with a Mana Dork. And by double spell I mean two CMC drops. Get back the Bolt. Okay. Wonder if they try to Ponder here. No. Another Noble. Alright. Happy to attack for 5. Oh, I didn't mean to attack with this Noble Hierarch. That was obviously incorrect. Small team just getting it done. Okay, well that costs you 2 mana. If you want a cantrip now, it costs 2 mana with Thalia as well, which taps you out. Interesting they targeted themselves as if they had an out. Maybe they're holding up Orcish. Which is quite nice because you get to attack for, I guess, with both. They play a Bowmaster. But then on ETB, happy to swords it. I didn't need to swords there. For some reason I thought it might fizzle the ability for them to get a token, but here we are. I think in all honesty, we just let them block there. Question is, do we still have Questing Beast in the deck? I think we do. Okay. Our land's actually perfect because it allows us to play around days. Not that Questing Beast is great in this matchup. If anything, I might even take it out. Could be worth bringing in a Bob. Like, they have a lot of targets for their removal and Orcish Bowmasters that I could just see bringing in one Bob. Everything else seems pretty sweet. Getting my mana correct is good. I really like Carpet in this matchup if that's something we can find room for. This hand is quite nice as well because it has 2 removal spells, all the mana in the world that we need. Pretty happy to keep this. Graph Cage. That's fine. That is a card that we can't really remove post-board, but... Alright. I do like Verdant here. And then going Verdant for Bayou into Bird. Okay, so they have no days. Again, really nice to know. Okay, really digging. Which thankfully most likely allows us just to play Savannah next turn and pass. Hold up Scrib Ranger, hold up Sword, hold up Snuff Out. They chose to not shuffle. Potentially thinking, do I want to snuff out this Birds of Paradise? The answer is no. I mean, Wasteland's kind of nice here as well. Taking them probably off black at this stage because of Snuff Out, because of Orcish Bowmasters. I kind of hoped they played a Wasteland there. Happy just to fire off the Scrib Ranger. We get to untap with it, which is really nice. Another land isn't great. Okay. Look, we got a threat. To note, Grafdigger's Cage does stop us from getting Dried Arbor out of the deck from a fetch land. Wasteland's fine. I think we'll just float white here. Thankfully, this is a Fairy Ranger, and this is a bird. Oh, they name Orc. Interesting. The question is, do I care about this? I actually think we just don't care about it because we're currently attacking in the air. That could also signal a bluff that we have Swords to Plowshares. Okay, that's really nice. Let's start with this. I'm not going to play the Caracas either, because they might think, hey, we have removal in hand, we can deal with this. We'll let it resolve. And bang. Obviously, they can wasteland the Krakus first, but this is also quite nice because it rewards us for not using the swords on the Plague Engineer just for the sake of using the removal spell on the first creature they play. Because now the Thalia as a 2/1 first strike is just keeping the Plague Engineer also from attacking. So float white. Okay. They attack and then probably do something before blocks. Oh, they're going to snuff out? Okay. Honestly, don't mind too much about that. Chose to not shuffle. Now I am a little bit more tempted to Swords the Plague Engineer next turn, just to keep their board a little bit free. So let's sword this. Maybe they think we have an Orc and they want to fire off a Brainstorm here. Wow, they're going to force it? Okay. To me, that makes me think they don't have another threat in hand and therefore need to rely on this Plague Engineer to get there. I'm also happy to sword it again for that sake. Unfortunately, we don't have the Orc, but that's okay. They chose to not shuffle. Now they have a Murktide, but we do have a Snuff Out. Which honestly, I think the full life is pretty huge. I'm actually happy to untap and see if we can just hardcast it. Yeah. So here we get to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Untap this, return this. Play this. Oh. Honestly, I could have also played the Bajukabog this turn, which was probably correct, instead of playing the Bayou, because we have the Verdant to play around the one card in here, which could be Daze. Definitely a misplay there. Because another Murktide now is actually quite scary. Especially when we haven't really had any real pressure. Can't close this game out just yet. But thankfully, we do get another turn here in playing this Bajukabog. Green Sun's also not a great draw if we draw into it. Grist, pretty good, actually. I'm going to start off with attacking with Script Ranger. So at least if they have some sort of removal spell. I guess they do have fetch for Mystic Sanctuary, which we've seen. That's probably okay. They fetch. Find the Sanctuary. Which is also, just a note here, it's a really good point to think about this, because if you have a Wasteland, you want to respond to the fetch to take them off the 3 islands, most likely on the black source here. Something just to think about. Three. Thalia goes to the bin. That's fine. So feeling not too bad here. You know, we haven't drawn a real threat, but we haven't drawn a Green Suns yet. The Grafdigger's Cage hasn't really done a whole lot, which is great for us. This pond is most likely a shuffle as well, as they brainstormed and then pondered straight away without playing some sort of fetch land. And they did shuffle, so they drew a random card. Okay. Happy to attack for 2. Could also play the Noble and attack with just 1, but still think this is fine. A Grist and a Green Suns. Oh, wow. We triggered Grist. We did it. We did it. That's pretty cool. I didn't even think of that. Because Grist is an insect, we got double triggers. Very cool. That shouldn't be such an exciting thing for me, but it really is. I'm going to keep this in hand as well. And the reason for that is that this is much better as unknown information than the mana we need right now, which we don't need at all. Also, 1, 2, 3 creatures in the bin. So the ult currently deals 3 damage. Delver's fine, seeing that we have the Scrub Ranger. Oof, that's a pretty nice draw. We are just going to attack with all of these. Petty Theft. Okay. No blocks, wow. Take up Grist. Oh, so close. Something really cool that I could have done there if the Grafdigger's Cage wasn't in play was Grist at 6, so it can ulti, fetch up Dried Arbor, return Dried Arbor to hand because it's a forest and also a green creature, and then evoke Endurance, targeting my opponent to put Endurance into the bin, which would then give me 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, no, it was. Oh, it was lethal. I think we're in a great spot anyway, but here we are. Apologies for missing lethal. That's on me. I think I missed lethal because of the additional creature from Grist. Yeah, so thankfully we get there. Really cool to beat Delver in the opening, especially with an X1 deck or an X1 riddled deck against an Orcish Bowmaster build. So really cool for that. If you enjoyed this content and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. 61% of the people who watch this content aren't subscribed. Crazy. Anyway, thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one. Hey team, welcome back for round 2. Here we have a hand where we have the Noble Hierarch that is a copy of Ignobled Hierarch, which in this hand would be pretty strong because we have green, white off basics, and then could potentially have black and black off the birds and the Ignobled Hierarch. Happy to keep this. Mana's really good. Removal. We have once to dig for another threat and Grist to go for the long game. So other than some sort of fast combo deck, pretty happy with this. Okay, that's a pretty nice draw here. Let's start with once. Probably hoping for a Verdant. Wasteland's not bad, but it does give away what we're like. It's obviously kind of lame to know that's coming, but that's fine. So I could play the Bird, which turns on turn 2 Grist, but I kind of like playing the Hierarch here, which could be an Ignobled, because I would rather sandbag the Black Source potentially. Maybe not. Like, maybe they're a Bolt deck, maybe they're not. I think the Bird is fine. I could write an article on this. Do you lead on the color of birds that you might want to sandbag? Or do you go for the Noble Hierarch, which doesn't allow you to Grist? I think Maverick's in a position in 2023 where you just have to go for it. And you have to give yourself every opportunity to cast all the cards in your hand as soon as possible. Because if anything, we are the deck that's going to die with cards in hand. There's probably no worse feeling. No Instep Bolt. That's always nice. They do know about the Wasteland, so they've opted for a snow-covered island, and most likely either a 3 or 4 color deck. Oh, it's going to be Lotus Petal. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, if they have Show and Tell... Oh, okay. Are they going to brainstorm something on top? Do they even need to? No. Okay. So here we have options. I feel like we just need to get rid of this right now because of how scary it can be. Ah, but the issue here is, and this is actually a great point to talk about. We can't double spell Thalia and Swords here because we need the white source of the bird. Sorry, we can't Thalia. What am I trying to say? Ah, yeah, if I want to play the Wasteland to play around like Spell Pierce potentially on the swords, then I can't play Thalia. If I want to play the Plains here and swords this, then I can't play Wasteland. Interesting point. I'm going to see... This is actually a good screen grab, and we'll come back to this later on. All right, we're back. I think I am just going to play the board. Get rid of this. And then if they really want to Spell Pierce it... Maybe I should have played around Spell Pierce. Yeah, I should have played the land. I guess I don't know what land I want to play. That's always the tough part. Okay. So Wasteland takes them off 2 lands. Thalia takes them off 1 mana. I actually don't mind Thalia here. It is tough though. I think Thalia is better just because it also gets that extra creature on the board to really try to get something going. But again, tough. Okay. Kind of awkward for them with Days because of the City of Traders on board. Here we're definitely playing the Grist if they put in Show and Tell, I think. Because Grist at least allows us to get rid of an Emrakul or an Atraxa or something of that note. But now they're in a tough spot because if they don't play it, yeah, we get to Wasteland them, which they know about, and play Thalia. Sneak. Okay. 3 cards in hand. Maybe they're just getting that down now so they actually have an out. Bowmasters is kind of cool. That probably means we just want to play Thalia and hold up Bowmaster. Now we're going wide somewhat, which I actually really like because it allows us... Huh. So I think what we actually want to do here is Wasteland the Polluted Delta because this can't get basic Mountain. And then if they get a Volk, we can Wasteland that one and then still play Grist this turn, which is pretty great. I think that's the role of Wasteland currently. They get the Volk. So let's take them off that. Nice. That's great for us. Let's play Grist. Alright, stick it up. Alright, let's get in. Even though that was a 2-for-1, I think it wildly works in our favor for taking them off the ability to search for that volcanic in our turn. Or in their turn, sorry, for the sneak attack. Now it's a little bit tough. Like if they have, surely if they had something to put in, they would have just put it in. We can potentially draw off this right now. Okay. I think I also, just a small thing, but I should have attacked first there and then left Grist. Like there is a world there where it's you know, not great if they put something in. Wow. Nice. I'd love to know if it comes back to that double Wasteland play on the Polluted Delta. Just something to keep in mind, especially against a deck like Sneak and Show. Their red mana really, really matters. So being able to trade 2 Wastelands with 1 Volk is well worth it, in my opinion. So this will be an interesting matchup. I love the Containment Priests and the Teeg. I love the Deafening Silences. Snuff Out doesn't really hit anything because they're probably playing Archon or Grizzlebrand or Atraxa or Emrakul. I do like the Chokes and the Force of Vigors. I think some number of Swords can come out. Probably some number of Grist as well. The Questing Beast. The Oof is fine. The Liberator's fine. Scrib Ranger probably isn't doing what I want it to do. Same with Bajuka Bog. Thalia. I could see like just 1 Bob coming out here. I don't mind that. Although, I really like this hand. Especially having a Swords. I was going to say for the 2/4 flyer that becomes a copy of what's on top. Pretty happy to keep this and see what happens. Double Priest is really nice. It doesn't stop Show and Tell into Omniscience, into Emrakul, which is typically how we just don't really have a way to deal with things, but I think that's okay. Another great 2-drop. I think with double Thalia, I'm happy to run 1 Thalia into Daze. They go like Ancient Tomb, Show and Tell. It's probably Grist because if they put in a creature, we just Grist away the Thalia for the creature. If they put in Sneak, they can't pay for a Pedal effect So we have the Containment Priest. They put in an Omni. Can't really beat that anyway. The priests do nothing because they can just cast things for 0. What I probably don't want to see is a Magus of the Moon or a Blood Moon effect. So yeah, I think we're sold here on Grist because we can Containment Priest next turn anyway. Still not too bad. Interesting. So we can sack either one. I think I'd still rather sack the Thalia and then discard 1 Containment Priest. They're down to 4 cards. Start with swords. Play Mum. Tick up. Pass. Definitely a little bit scary here with them having access to 5 cards in hand, 4 mana. But just a pass. Wow. Wow. Do we draw a land to be able to play around days? We do. Oh. Well, let's be honest. We have to just play this right now before they can untap with double red. They have the force. They have 2 cards left. Pitching a Brainstorm. Well, they're thinking, and not to diss sneak players, but you don't typically need to think with the deck, so obviously they have something here. Okay. Emrakul's pretty good. I think they realize that if they attack for 15 when we're on 14, that's gonna be it. All right. Pretty happy just to run this back, honestly. Yeah. No changes needed. Happy to keep this. Turn 1 acceleration into turn 2 Bowmaster. Having the Liberator is also quite nice. Opponent potentially looking if they can go off with like Ancient Tomb Petal. Okay. Okay. Tough. Maybe the play was to fetch for basic, but I guess we do have like Force of Vigor to draw into here as well. Okay. They get to brainstorm, but they don't have a shuffle effect, which is good for us. But sadly, we just don't have much of a clock. Look, dried up, it could potentially go there. Okay, they find a land. Guess like land into sneak is pretty scary. Oh, they're gonna show and tell? Well, I guess we put in Outland Liberator and then see what happens. Wow, is this gonna be their downfall? Maybe. Get rid of the Dryad Arbor. And probably at this point, probably Noble Hierarch. The Archon's tough though. But oh, what we can do is end step fetch for Dried Arbor, then Green Suns for Grist. Oh, the Dried Arbor's gone. Ooh. Okay, we'll just go for Forest. Oh, and I can also flash in the Bowmaster here, which is nice. Maybe I should have done that actually in response to the trigger of the Archon. It's probably correct. I mean, we have to try to Green Suns for Grist. Okay. pretty much take 9 here and go to 6. Maybe there's a world where I'm supposed to keep the bird as well as just a blocker, but it's a pretty tough one. Yeah, I think I was probably supposed to keep the bird just to block. We do have some outs here. Swords, obviously. Green Suns for Grist. Maybe they played the Tomb so that they could hardcast Force. Okay. Now it's tough. Oof. Okay. And I guess we hope that they have nothing. Tough. Do they attack me? Okay. You never know with the sneak play. They could be attacking the Grist, let's be honest. Things happen. We'll see you in round 3. Hey team, we're on the play, which is really nice for game 3 with a pretty sweet hand. Turn 1 Noble into turn 2 Thalia with Wasteland or Caracas. Liberator, mana for days, pretty happy to keep. I'm going to keep the fetch land for a black source. I could go for a basic, but with Noble in hand, pretty happy just to run out the Savannah. Oof. Reanimator, I'm going to say. You never know, though. Take the Thalia. Okay. Definitely not unbeatable, which is nice. Have a lot of good draws here. Like that. Yeah. I don't want to get dried up here. I do want to hold this for Orcish Bowmasters potentially. What do they exile? Grief, Pitch Grief. Double Swamp makes me think this isn't going to be just some... Interesting. We have the Caracas, though. So... I know that Animate Dead works with it, but... Obviously the Caracas does stop that. Okay. So it comes in, and then with the trigger on the stack, we return it to their hand. Cool. Nice. Now that we have the Bayou, happy to get Dried Arbor here just to increase these beats a little bit. Maybe draw into Green Suns for Questing Beast. Nope, okay, that's fine. That's cool. Honestly, we haven't shown black yet, so I'm pretty happy just to keep not showing black. This also looks to be mono black Reanimator, most likely. We obviously know about that one card in hand. Stitches Supplier. Okay. Interesting. They hit a Bowmaster. Could be tempting. I now don't want to attack into this. Interesting that they're attacking with it, because we can attack with the Dried Arbor now for 2. That's pretty nice, not gonna lie. All right, we take 4. They do nothing. Does increase our clock, which is nice. Oof. I think in this case, I'm happy just to tick it up. Oh, unless they have, like, Ritual into Helm me. That's a good reason to get rid of the Voidwalker. I didn't think of the Helm combo, and I probably should have. Because now the Voidwalker can even attack the Grist to put it down to 3. That's a bit of negligence on my end. Yeah. Come on, Questing Beast. That's what I need. I need Green Suns. I love this deck sometimes. When I got the domain of greensuns.com, I also got the luckiest. You know, I can call on Questing Beast when I want. I'm not saying anything. All right. We want the Surgicals. We want the Fairy Macabre. Containment Priests. Look, I think Beast is actually quite strong against this build of the deck. The Mums can most likely come out. The Bobs. The Scrib. That's 61. Kind of like everything else. Maybe collect Oof. Maybe they are playing. If they are playing There's no reason for them not to be playing like Leyline and Helm, so I think I might bring in these. Drop a Knight, just because of that. Yeah, I don't mind this. A little bit mana heavy, but it does have Ferromacabre, it does have mana acceleration and Green Suns to try to find like Gris, so happy to keep this. They've mulliganed to 5 cards. Definitely not what I want. I really hope this is Entomb. Okay, that's fine. I mean, it does stop 4 of my cards, which is pretty good. Not too much we can do against the opposition agent. Entomb, Reanimate, Entomb. They don't attack because of endurance. Wow. I'm going to pause here because honestly, like, maybe I do want to put it in, but obviously I don't. That's a huge win for us. I will play the Bog. Maybe not. The reason to play the Bog is that it allows us to hardcast the Ferromacabre. Well, there goes our plan. Alright, that's fair. Well, it's something. It's something. The tough part about this build is that Deafening Silence typically is quite good against the Dark Ritual decks, but this deck can Dark Ritual into so many creatures that it doesn't really do a whole lot. Especially when you're already bringing in Graveyard Hate, you don't really need extra. Maybe there's a chance here. Okay. Look, the fetch can go and get Dried Arbor. I'm not going to play around like top deck opposition agent here. No attacks? Really? That's very unexpected. Are we gonna steal this one? No. Surely. QB coming in clutch. I was thinking of Wastelanding the Verdant there, but I'm not too sure about that. Now I don't mind it. Maybe they need to get a dual land? No. This also puts them on a 2-turn clock. Wow. This is it. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. If you just watched that, let me know in the comments with just something nice about questing beasts, please. Just something nice about questing beasts. That's the way we do it here. All right, we'll see you in the next one. Hey team, welcome back on the draw again, but have a pretty sweet hand. Once upon a time, hopefully into a Mana Dork, into turn 2 Thalia or Bob, or maybe even a turn 2 Knight. So pretty happy to keep this hand. I like how they kind of like face like on each other's backs here. Like, what up, G? And then Knight's like, hey, can I come join? I don't know what I'm doing here. This isn't even. Let's just play the game. Let's just play the game. All right, we're gonna keep this. It's a late night for me. If they are Reanimator. Oh, Tomb. Okay. Chrome Mox. Oof. Definitely a deck that I don't want to play against. Atraxa? I didn't expect that. Please be Trinisphere. If anything. Oh, they're hard casting Elvish Spirit. Why? Ah, they must have Natural Order. Wow, that is a turn 1 I did not expect to see. One sec. All right, we're back. Okay. We're definitely using this first. There's Noble. I like Noble here. Into Wasteland. Okay, that's not too bad. Oh, Chalice for 1. Green Suns for 1. Okay. Really trying to ramp into natural order, most likely. Okay, you got it. Honestly, Swords Splashes at the top would be pretty big game here. We don't find it, but we do get to deploy a Noble Hierarch. Probably just off a Bayou here. And hope they don't have the... Like, they have 2 cards. Surely one is natural order if they play the Elvish Spirit Guide turn 1 with 3 mana. This is big. This is huge if they don't have it, because we have Orcish Bowmaster for the Noble Hierarch. Another Green Suns for 1. Alright. Okay. Still allows us to go Orc. Probably take out the Ignoble. And then play a Mum. Right. Happy to put this in front just to save some face. Come on, deck. I mean, now Thalia also keeps them off natural order for another turn. I guess not, because they have the Caracas. All right. I guess we play Bog this turn into Knight. That gives us an option of Caracas potentially next turn. Didn't want to attack. I could have attacked there maybe, but I just want to be a little bit safe here. I'm not too sure what I need to play around, but... Because I'm only thinking of Atraxa as natural order targets, I was happy to play Knight instead of Thalia to tax them off natural order. But maybe they now realize that if they only have Atraxas, then Knight getting Caracas is just like a nice out for us. Oh, I didn't play the Thalia as well because they have the Caracas. Of course. Now we are in a position as well where Dark Confidant is a little bit tricky. And potentially, I don't even want to play it. But this is definitely mana for natural order. They can't attack, because then if we trade, then they, what, get rid of the Noble Hierarch? I kind of hope it is just Atraxa, which is pretty funny. If it's Progenitus, we really... Oh, okay. Fight someone on which you control. Okay, that's fine, because we have the Mum. But it gets deal damage. That's a yikes. Yeah. Deal damage, deal damage, deal damage. That's just a winner. Didn't play around that. Surgical Containment Priest, snuff out Teeg, take out the Oof, the Liberator. a Thalia or two, probably even the Endurances. I think Thalia's actually quite okay. Maybe, yeah, Vivian's... Let's bring in Vivian. We haven't brought in Vivian yet, so let's do that. Actually, the Bobs are just a little bit tough, that I'm happy just to go with Thalia's here. But yeah, definitely just one of those games where if we're on the play, whole different game. Okay, happy to keep this. The Containment Priest is really nice. Kind of hoping to go once into Manadork. Opponent keeps 7. That's also pretty strong. I think Bowmasters is just a little bit better here. Also want to play around Wasteland just a little bit. Wow, that's their turn? Okay. We get punished here if we draw into a Manadork, because then we can't Manadork and also Wasteland. Sketchy keep if they kept a hand where they have to play Dryad Arbor first, so that seemed like it was potentially just them trying to... bait, potentially? They're going to pass here with 2 mana open. Honestly, I still like Wasteland here. They played the Chromok, so they obviously have something to flash in. Once. Okay. Windswept Heath is fine by me. They end step fetch for... They're probably going for Dryad Arbor. Okay, they're doing nothing. Chromox is still fine here. Progenitus. Okay. Now they fetch. I'm just going to get Containment Priest here. Put that on the board. Like they could have like Ancient Tomb. Oh, they just pass back? Wow, okay. Happy to attack because we have the swords. And if they do nothing, I think I'm okay with just tapping out just this turn, just to be able to play this knight. Oof. Okay, get to untap. That's pretty huge. Just to pass back. All right. We did take Oof out, I believe. Yes, makes sense. Would be kind of cool here. Honestly, I think we just play Hierarch, attack for 3 with Containment Priest, and hold up both Bowmaster and Sword. Seems like a pretty great position to be in. If they do nothing in their turn as well, we just have used once upon a time. Alright. Get a fetch land. Fetch for Bayou. Once. Probably the Scrib Ranger, so we can attack with the Knight as well if needed. Second Grist. Alright, let's start with... Play Scrib Ranger. Black, untap this, return this. Green. Sack this. Cradle. Sorry, I should have got a second black. Oh no, we have the Bayou. Sorry. Honestly happy just to pass here. I don't want to throw this Containment Priest into another Endurance. Okay. I don't believe I want to change anything really. Yeah, Oof is cool, but I think there's probably better things. Dark Confidant's actually pretty nice. Let's bring in the Bob and take out one Knight. One Thalia. Bring in the Knight. There we go. Especially post-board, maybe we just have enough ways to control the board. The Dark Confidant is actually quite nice because we do get card advantage from it. They probably can't attack too well into it if we're controlling their board with things like Bowmaster, Swords, Plague Engineer, Snuff Out, Containment Priest. A lot of cards that, you know, stop them from doing it. Also, Containment Priest is a little bit like Teeg, where it is obviously a no-bow with Green Suns, but when you're turning off Green Suns and also multiple Dryad Arbors and also Natural Order, worth it. Yeah, that dinosaur was nutty. Deck's pretty cool. Obviously tries to accelerate pretty quickly into both mana and creatures to be able to natural order on as early as turn 3, I guess. I guess turn 2, because you can Green Suns for a creature, either Dryad Arbor or Chrome Mox into a Mana Dork, and then natural order off an Ancient Tomb turn 2. This is probably a mulligan. No opening removal is a big thing here. We have a lot of mana, but not a whole lot to do with it, so pretty happy to mulligan. And this is great. It is a one-lander, but it has a lot of play to it. So I'm pretty happy to keep this. The drop is probably the hardest part here. I think it's probably the Green Suns, but it could very well be the Thalia. And the line is something like Bayou into Noble into Snuff Out, into Untap Orcish, into have Containment Priest open and go from there. So I think it is going to be Thalia here. Oof. Opponent's mulligan to 4 cards, which is pretty rough. but you never know. Like, honestly, Noble Hierarch, Forest, Ancient Tomb, Natural Order. Boom. That's why I do like decks like this. All right. Look, I even said in chat, Forest, Noble, Natural Order, Tomb, let's go. So let's fetch for Bayou. Noble. Snuff. Again, like, it's tough. They get to Green Suns here, but we do have Bowmaster for that, which is nice. Can you imagine Cradle off the top? Oh. Because I'm not too afraid of like not having Contemporary Soap in this turn, I think I do want to build up my mana now, which means I should have actually done this before. I guess I could have also gone Mum and also I think Mum and also Dried Arbor there was probably correct. But here I get to go for... Oh, did we take out Scrib Ranger? Was that another matchup? Yeah, it was. Good. Okay. They wouldn't bring in Contemporary Priest, right? Because of their deck? Surely. Untap, return, play, attack. Okay. Ancient Tomb's a thing, but they don't have double green at the moment, which is good for us. Huh. Okay. They get a basic. One, two, three. Untap this, return this. Play this. Play Mum. Play Beast. Beast has been really powerful this game. Oh, this match, sorry. Sorry. This league. There we go. I mean, I don't want to say it, but like, can you imagine if they had like Sword into Natural Order? Into the big dinosaur thing? I guess like, yeah, because they can, yeah. There's Natural Order. Okay. Oof. That was close. I mean, they went to, 4 cards, but still had a lot of game. So they play Endurance. And we get to give Pro green. All right. Nice. We'll see you in the last one to hopefully finish this out in a high. Hey team, welcome back to round 5. This is actually a great example of having this Noble Hierarch, which could be an Ignobled Hierarch, which in this hand would be better because it gives us access to turn 2 Dark Confidant, whereas Noble Hierarch doesn't. So really interesting to see that come up in this league. This is still a pretty good keep, especially with the mana acceleration into Thalia, into Wasteland or Endurance. No end step bolt is nice, but I assume this is going to be a Orcish Bowmaster. Cool. Wow, no attacks from them is pretty huge. I am going to take them off the sea here. Okay. Bog them. Play Noble. Probably should have done the Noble first before, like, they could daze. Tundra. Wow, 4 color? Must be. A daze goes in the bin, which is interesting. They're really looking for a land. No shuffle. Kind of like just flooding the board with X1s. Also pretty happy to attack for 4 here. Even a Murktide here isn't too bad because we do have Green Sun Zenith for Grist. I really hope they start off with a cantrip. Okay. They keep on top. Could be a Murktide. Potentially also an Orcish Bowmaster. I think it's a creature. This is fine. Wow, no. Interesting. Wow. So here I actually really like attacking for 4. I guess I could have actually attacked with the Dark Confidant and left the Thalia at bay. That's actually the correct play because First Strike is huge on this board. And then all I'm going to do here is Wasteland the Volk so that they can't force this Endurance. I think I'd rather go after the black, but here we are. Again, like Bowmaster did something, but hasn't done a whole lot since. Which is a really good showing of how Carador has built this deck. You know, Bob's been giving us card advantage, which is really nice. Like, honestly, now we're probably just attacking with these. Pitching a Murktide. Honestly, pretty happy just to pass here. I could Green Suns for a Dried Arbor. Because that's not gone. I don't mind that. At 15 life, we're pretty good. Yeah, they're just going to concede to that. Okay. All right. So, we like the Plague and the Snuff Out. Honestly, like, if you're still watching, firstly, thank you very much. That means a lot. Second, Containment Priest is really interesting because although it does turn off Green Suns, it is a 2/2 for Flash, which against things like Delver, DRC, Orcish, is pretty interesting. We have seen from time to time different Jeskai decks bring in Containment Priest even just as a 2/2 with Flash against the Mirror, because it is a card that they essentially have to deal with at some point. I don't think we're there, but it's interesting for sure. So I like taking out Collector Oof. The Liberator I probably want to take out. The Dark Confidants are just a little bit too risky. The Beast is fine, but I don't mind bringing in both chokes. Although choke is worse on the draw, we have so many ways to deal with creatures now that I'm pretty happy just to make sure we see choke. It's not a card I want in my opener though. This is a pretty great hand. We have swords into Orcish Bowmaster. We have a few draws to draw into land. It's a little bit light on land, but honestly on the draw, pretty great keep. Pretty happy just to play out Bird here. It's a pretty easy win. I also want to be somewhat patient with my removal. But because of this, I'm happy to do this. They didn't daze it either, which is a great sign for us. Which means I'm probably pretty happy in just playing this right now. We also have Swords for Murktide, so I don't have to do anything too extravagant with Endurance here. As we did say, keeping this hand, the mana was not great. That's a great way for Delver to punish you. I should have blocked there. I don't know why I didn't. Pretty happy just to untap here and see if we draw into a land. Happy to fetch here and just Endurance at sorcery speed, or at flash speed in their upkeep. They didn't daze the... Wow, they didn't daze the Once Upon a Time though, which is interesting. Especially when they're going after my mana. Again, thankfully this is fine. Happy just to hold up Bowmaster here. I'm also going to take the damage. It's only one, and I don't think it will come up. But I'd rather see if they ponder here or do something else. They don't. They do nothing here. Okay, they're going to do something. So here I'm happy to take them off the black mana, gain the extra life. Because even if they waste on us back, we have Thalia next turn as a play. Play that. Now we get to attack, and if they want to play an Orcish now, they have to... Oh, they can't play an Orcish, of course. Wow. Now we're looking really strong, because now we have Thalia into next turn Grist around days. Because thankfully, on the stack, Grist is a creature spell, so you don't have to pay the Thalia tax. Little fun fact. Two mana bolt is more than fine. It's one less bolt for the Bowmaster. They're also still at 19, which is a little bit scary, let's be honest. Alright. I think now we're at the point where we just want to play the Grist first and then choke next turn. Because I really like making sure that they're tapped out when we play the choke. Or if they have a force, they force the Grist. Okay. Which could be wrong as well. Like maybe the card will worry about is Murktide. But no Murktide this turn. Oof. Definitely no Murktide this turn. Alright. Start with Orc attack. Now we bog. Now we choke. Now we bog, now we choke. That has to be on a shirt, surely. Alright, nice. Well, we went 4-1, which is really nice. I was really happy with that. I think there was a few small errors that I did make, but not too unhappy. Let's go to Decktech, and first off, let's just enjoy these little chests. See what we get. Hopefully something okay. No, I'm gonna not really, but here we are. All right. Honestly, the deck was pretty cool. This noble did come up in that game, not being a black source for Duck Confidant, but didn't matter too much. But I think it is nice to have. The Duck Confidants, we didn't really get too much play with them. Obviously, in that game just then, they did draw some cards. There was a point, however, against the... I believe against the Natural Order deck, where it would have been nice to play a Dark Confidant out or a Sylvan Library, but the Sylvan Library you do get control over what you're drawing into and how much life you're losing. the Dark Confidant seemed a little bit risky, so there was definitely a stage where I probably rather had Sylvan Library, but Dark Confidant being a threat as well is really nice. Bowmaster overperformed. I think Bowmaster was great, and in a lot of matches I just wanted to see the 4th copy, if anything, which is tough. Snuff Out was nice as well, and that's going to be a really interesting balance of, is the downside of Snuff Out not hitting key creatures like Bowmaster, like Opposition Agent, like Fiend Artisan, like Plague Engineer, like Atraxa, like Grizzlebrand, like Archon, like Magus in the Moon, because for this version you can't really snuff out a Magus because you'll never have a swamp. Is it worth just the tempo of being able to play like a turn 1 Noble Hierarch or turn 1 Mana Accelerant into Snuff Out on the same turn? Honestly, I think it is. I think Snuff Out's just so good because it allows you to keep building out your board, which you want to develop, and still have control over the board in removing threats. So I think Snuff Out was great. A lot of these cards I really liked, even just the numbers, like 2 Containment Priest. It's a card you want to see early on against the decks you want it against. Reanimator, Natural Order being the 2 big ones, and we did. So that's fantastic. Honestly, I think if anything, with the 2nd Grist in the deck, the need for the Vivian might be questionable, and maybe this could be something else. Potentially 1 more card just to not lose to those really fast decks. Like it could be another Surgical, it could be another Deafening Silence, it could be something like a Thoughtseize even, especially when paired with Surgical. Against namesake decks, it's obviously very strong. If you're able to do something like, you know, hit a Show and Tell and Surgical it, or Doomsday, Surgical it, Infernal Tutor, Natural Order, a lot of things. So potentially I might even, I'd look at potentially seeing if there's a better card to fit into that Vivian slot, because the deck grinds really well. And I don't think it's needed potentially, which is tough. I love Planeswalkers, but I think with the 2nd Grist, you kind of already have that extra ability to grind. So yeah, Carador, love the list. Really nice to do pretty well with it. And also really nice to go really well against the Grixis Orc Delver decks, because you would think on paper this deck gets hosed by them with how many Orcs and bolts that they have, and days taking pretty big toll on you mentally as well. We perform really well because it was a case of, sure, we do have a lot of X1s, but that also means we have a lot of creatures deploying onto the board early on, so they do need multiple removal spells to actually control how much we're putting out there, which I really liked. I really enjoyed. So hope you all enjoyed this as well. Of course, if you want any information about donation deck lists, you can check it out in the Green Sun Zenith under the Support Us page. There's also links for that in the video description below. And yeah, big thanks again. Catch you next time.